זה לא קל לאהוב.
Okay, welcome everybody. Welcome to Marry Me However, a panel discussion of the film, followed by a Q&A hosted by Eshel and the Consulate General of Israel to New England. And special thanks to our community partner, Keshet. Can you all hear me? Okay, excellent. My name is Miryam Kabakov. I'm the Executive Director of Eshel, and I'll be moderating our panel today. Eshel is a national support, education, and advocacy organization. We work with Orthodox LGBTQ Jews and their families. We've been working with the filmmaker, Rabbi Mordechai Vardi, who's with us today, and with Go-To Films to bring this groundbreaking documentary to North American audiences and to conduct dialogues like this one around it with communities where its message can have the most significant impact. So before we begin, I'll just say that I would like people to keep themselves muted unless they are speaking. And Ambassador Miryam Rubin will be speaking first. So Ambassador Rubin, I am going to highlight you. Hang on one second, spotlight you so we can all see you. Okay. Okay, there you are. Hi. Let's hear from Ambassador Miryam Rubin, Consul General. Go ahead, take it away. Oh wait, I have a little introduction. I'm sorry. Ambassador Miryam Rubin has served as the Consul General of Israel to New England since November of 2020. Ambassador Rubin has a diplomatic career spanning over 3 decades, during which he has served in various positions, including roles at the Israeli embassies in Chile and Mexico, and as ambassador to Paraguay, Bolivia, and Colombia. Ambassador Rubin served as Israel's ambassador to the UN between 2010 and 2011, and as Israel's chief of state protocol from 2015 to 2020. Ambassador Rubin was born in South Africa in 1961 and immigrated to Israel from the UK in 1974, where he studied diplomacy and international relations at the Hebrew University in Jerusalem. During his military service, Ambassador Rubin was an air traffic controller in the Israeli Air Force. He is the father to Jen and Liad and partner to David. Take it away, Ambassador Rubin.
Thank you very much, Miryam. Shalom to everybody, and thank you for joining us this afternoon from New England and beyond. And thank you for this introduction. With Pride Month around the corner and days after the International Day Against Homophobia, Transphobia, and Biophobia, we are proud to take part in this important panel discussion about Marry Me However. Together with Eshel and Keshet, this Israeli documentary is a first-hand testimony of the hardships overcome by many religious LGBTQ+ inside and outside of Israel, who are standing at the intersection between their personal beliefs, tradition, and sexual orientation. As an openly gay man, living a happy life outside the closet with my partner David, and having raised 2 beautiful daughters with my ex-wife, I can attest that the freedoms of expression, sexual orientation, religion are an integral and inseparable part of the Israeli society. I wish I could do more to facilitate the obstacles faced by the film subjects Yarden, Tzvi, Nadav, Naama, and many others whose faces are pixeled and voices distorted on their journey to self-acceptance and peace of mind. I would like to cite the poignant words of Tzvi Ben Meir from the film. You just hide and hide and hide. You go to school and hide. You go to yeshiva and hide. You keep down all body and soul's loves and desires and hide. You finish your exams, your army service, your degree, and continue hiding. I'm happy to say that as Israel's Consul General to New England, I no longer have to hide. We are honored to have here with us today the filmmaker, Rabbi Mordechai Vardi, as well as Nadav Schwartz, Shoni Braun, and Susan Fuld. Thank you all for sharing your inspiring stories with us. I would like to commend Eshel for building a support network for lesbians, gays, bisexuals, and transgender people in Orthodox Jewish communities. A special thank you to Rabbi Steve Greenberg for putting this event together with the Eshel team and our consulate staff. We're looking forward to collaborating with you again. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that beautiful introduction. We are now going to turn to Mordechai Vardi, Rabbi Vardi. Welcome from Israel. Thank you for staying up so late for us once again. You always have to stay up late to be with us. So I will introduce you, and to all those of you who are just joining us, welcome again to our panel on the film Marry Me However. And our panelists have both lived experiences similar to those in the films and are also professionals who have worked with the Orthodox LGBTQ population and their families. So Rabbi Vardi, let's start with you. You are the rabbi of Kibbutz Rosh Tzurim and a director, scriptwriter, and instructor at Ma'aleh School of Television, Film, and the Arts in Jerusalem. You wrote the screenplay for the movie Halakeh, which was screened at the Jerusalem Film Festival in 2008 and broadcasted on Israel television. Rabbi Vardi produced and directed the 2017 documentary entitled The Field, and most recently, the film we are discussing today, Marry Me However. Take it away, Rabbi Vardi.
Okay, I'm happy to be here with you. I want to say that this film I made also as a filmmaker and a rabbi. I think that our religion and the Torah is relevant, so we have to face reality and to understand the people that are not really in the standard of the halacha, and we have to understand and to recognize who they are, and not to make really bad decision for them and pushing them to life that is not appropriate to their identity. So this is was very important to me, and as from the time the film went out, I got many messages from many people that families can understand each other, and many LGBT religious decide to show this film to the family, and it helps them to understand and to accept them. I think this is the first step, and we have to go forward, sitting together, rabbis and LGBT people, and really get a progress and to a solution to what really, how we can guide the youngsters who feel that this is their identity, that they can live with their religion, with their belief, with their Judaism, and with their special identity they have. And so this is the main thing that I all the time get more and more reactions for the film, and to understand how important it is from all the sides.
Rabbi Vardi, can you tell us a little bit about what motivated you to make this film in the first place?
Really, I made this film after I read in the Facebook the story of Tzvi. He was a student in Ma'aleh, and I knew him very well, and he was very religious when he came, and he's very, very talented. He's a great writer, And when I read in the Facebook that he got out of the closet and got divorced with two children, and I know that he's a son of a rabbi, and he really came from the hardcore of the, Tzionut Datit. So I asked him to meet and to understand what he went through getting to this situation. And when I heard this story, I understood that this is a phenomenon. It's not just a story of one person. So I told him, if you're coming with me, we'll make a film about it. And this was the point where I started. Then I met Nadav Schwartz. We sat on a coffee, and he opened wide all this story of the people who are getting married because they're denied their identity and what they are going through. So this is a hard story, and it's not just a story about LGBT. It's also a story about accepting yourself and story of accepting the other. That this is a very important thing in Judaism. That's why God decided to put us in Egypt as slaves, that we will know forever that we have to accept everyone, and especially those who are weak and not accepted in the mainstream.
Thank you. Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much. Our next speaker will be Nadav Schwartz, who Rabbi Vardi just mentioned. Nadav is a subject in the film. He's a journalist and a speaker representing the LGBTQ community in Israel. He runs the Pride Library in Jerusalem and conducts a quarterly gathering for LGBTQ children in Jerusalem, maybe teenagers, and is a card game creator and has created a new card game recently for LGBTQ dating. Okay, Nadav, at some point, please put a link in the chat if you have a website. I think people are interested in that. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey and how this film has maybe changed things for you since it has come out?
So shalom to everybody, and thank you for having me. Well, I started my journey at the age of 13 when I figured out that I'm gay. And then I decided at the age of 18 to go to conversion therapy. After that not succeeding, I decided to go and marry a woman.
Wait, Nadav, one sec. Your audio just got a little weird, like you're in a tunnel. So I don't know if other people are hearing that.
Can you hear
But
me well?
this is, yeah, better. That's a little better. Go ahead.
So at the age of 18, I went to conversion therapy. And when that didn't succeed, at the age of 26, I got married to a woman. She knew that I'm gay before we got engaged. And after 4 months, we got divorced already. Since then, her family tried to get back at me for this marriage. And in a way, in return, I became an activist in the LGBT community, trying to get people aware of the situation of that there are religious LGBTs, and that you should not send them to conversion and you should not send them to marriage. So I tried doing that, and that was 10 years ago. And in a way, when Rav Vardi did his movie, and I remember that first meeting, and the best thing about the meeting was that in the end, Rav Vardi said, "You don't have to pay for the coffee. It's on me." And when the movie came out, and it was a long, long time between when we sat to talk and when it came out, I felt that what I was looking for came to life. I was looking for a shofar. I was looking for some kind of a broadcast, a lot like to reach as far as we can to talk about these situations, and that finally came true. And in a way, I felt that I can lean back a bit and rest thanks to this movie.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. We will come back to you. The next speaker is Shoni Braun. Let's see, Shoni, you are right here. Hi, Shoni.
Hi.
Shoni was married for 18 years to her husband before he came out. They had 4 children together and they continue to co-parent together amicably. Shoni, can you talk about your experience of being married to a gay man and what you feel comfortable sharing about your relationship before, during, and after his coming out? And how does this film resonate for you?
First of all, I want to say thank you for having me here. When I married my husband, I didn't know he was gay. And the entire 18 years that I was with him, I did not know he was gay. I had a wonderful marriage. It was loving and happy and wonderful. I have 4 amazing children. And one night, my husband just sat down with me and said, "Hey, listen, I think I'm gay." And it was not what I was expecting to hear, to say the least. And you know, that period of trying to process that information was extremely difficult, because, you know, my natural reaction was to question everything that had happened in the previous 18 years. And you know, I learned not to question, but I also learned to think forward, like how to navigate forward, moving forward. And of course, my children were my #1 priority. And I think that that's why, for me at least, why this film is so important, and why there should be more, and there should be more discussion and more awareness and more talking, more everything. There just should be more, because there are, you know, I feel like it's repeated over and over again about how the people who are part of the LGBTQ community should feel confident to be who they are, and they should feel comfortable and safe to be who they are and open. But it's almost like it's, you know, just taken for granted. And I think that maybe sometimes presenting from a different perspective is important. Like my perspective, which is, when my husband came out, it was really, really devastating for my children. And you know, my children and their father have a great relationship right now. Everything's been great. He's a good father, and they see each other all the time. But to them, everything that they knew was no longer. And it was devastating. One of my children actually started using drugs and blacking out, just so he could disappear from what was happening and make it go away. And my kids were being teased by their friends. We had to move out of the city for fear of any kind of backlash that, you know, people in the ultra-Orthodox community were going to bombard us with, or pressure us to believe is right or wrong. And I think the only way for this to become more mainstream, more acceptable, is for people to understand that it's not so simple, it's not so black and white, and people's lives are at stake. Their mental health and their families, and just it's as simple as staying alive. That's really very important. And I applaud everybody who was part of making this and who is part of putting it out there, just bringing awareness, making sure that people know that this exists and you can't ignore it.
Thank you so much, Shoni. Okay, we'll come back to you as well. Our next speaker is Susan Fuld. Susan Fuld has been an early childhood educator, special needs advocate, and communal volunteer for 4 decades. Susie's been instrumental in initiating parent programs at Eshel, such as the monthly phone-in support group and the parent-to-parent mentoring program, as well as the annual parent retreat. As an Eshel board member, Susie hopes to affect change, and she says, I want to stand up for what's right so that our children and grandchildren, whether they are straight or gay, will know they have a place in the Orthodox community. So I'm very pleased to welcome Susie. Susie, can you tell us, how does this film resonate for you as an Orthodox parent of a gay son?
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Miryam. From the time our son was 8 days old, we were marrying him off. When we circumcise our sons on the 8th day after birth, as part of the service, everyone in attendance expresses the hope that the newborn achieves 3 goals in life: living a life of Torah, standing under the chuppah, and doing good deeds, maasim tovim. So our son's 8th day fell on Patriots Day, and we live in Brookline. And the course for the Boston Marathon runs through town along the main drag. Streets are closed and parking bans are in effect. Scheduling the bris required extra planning and logistics, and we had to start and finish when it was still possible to cross from one side of town to the other. It required phone calls to the police, the Moel, the shul, the caterer. You get the picture, right? So when the time came, we were ready to accompany him with his first step into being Jewish. We embraced what at first was a roadblock with balloons tied to sneakers as centerpieces. Surrounded by family and friends, our youngest son, Avraham Yair Ben Yehuda, received his name. So why am I talking about a bris? Because we're supposed to be talking about marriage. I'll admit to you now that standing at his bris, it never occurred to me that possibly one day he might be under the chuppah, not alongside a woman, but another man. Our assumption, and that of our families, our friends, and our Orthodox community, was that Avi was straight and would follow the natural course. And as such, he would someday end up under the chuppah with a woman. In runner's terms, we hit the wall when 20 years later, we were disabused of that assumption when he told us he was gay. We had no time to warm up. We had to hit the ground running. It was clear he had given much thought to the whole process of coming out, and I admire his courage to this day. He was prepared. He had books for us to read, phone numbers to call, and information about Eshel. But that night, Avi also told us that if he did find a life partner, they would probably not be able to remain in an Orthodox community. He assured us of his commitment to Judaism, but realistically speaking, it would probably mean joining a congregation affiliated with a more accepting denomination. It saddened me then at the starting gate, and it continues to do so today, that my son feels there is no place for him, a partner, and their family in the Orthodox community. How did he reach that conclusion? He got the message, both direct statements, such as Leviticus chapter 18, 22, to the more subtle comments made by rabbis, teachers, friends. And within days of coming out, Avi was headed to Israel. He had been chosen as an Orthodox student leader on his campus to lead a group of non-religious students. During that trip, during an informal Ask the Rabbi session, someone asked about homosexuality. And the rabbi answered, they should just marry women. The essence of his message was fake it till you make it. And as we all saw in the film, that answer can be devastating to everyone involved. When Avi related this exchange to us, I gasped. Would this rabbi want his daughter to enter into such a marriage? And are there really parents who would want their children to live a lie? That was a defining moment for me, because I knew then and there that we were not those parents. And as much as we might have wished he was not gay, it was our job to love and parent the person he is, not the person we thought he was. Now, I have no doubt that the student on that bus who asked the question was LGBTQ. And my guess is that he was trying to figure out where his place would be in Orthodoxy. I don't know who that person was, but if he's listening, please do not follow that rabbi's advice. As this movie has shown, the repercussions are enormous. Parenting is not a sprint, it's a marathon, with many twists and turns and ups and downs and Heartbreak Hill. And over the course of these 10 years, we've traveled, experienced, and learned a lot. Within days and weeks of that first night, we began our training by beginning the marathon of self-discovery and trying to be informed and supportive parents. We read the articles and books that Avi gave us and dialed the phone numbers. And for Avi's sake, as well as for our own, we needed to find a way to reconcile what appeared to be unreconcilable. We wanted to show him there was a place for him in our community. The following month, we traveled to Israel to meet with Rabbi Shlomo Riskin, the chief rabbi of Efrat. His interpretation of Leviticus verses was not nearly as harsh as any other we read. His parting words to Avi were, I hope you find someone to love with whom you can spend your life. We were not created to be alone. There you have it, another quote from that same Torah, Genesis chapter 2, verse 18. As parents, we never cross the finish line, but the direction our children take is theirs, not ours. We help them prepare for the race. We encourage them along the way. I'm sorry. And now our job is to be supportive fans, watching from the sidelines and rooting for them along the way. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Susie. That was very moving. Beautiful. Our next speaker is Rabbi Steve Greenberg. Rabbi Greenberg is an Orthodox rabbi, educator, writer, and speaker who has led the call for LGBTQ inclusion in the Orthodox world. He's the author of Wrestling with God and Men, Homosexuality in the Jewish Tradition, for which he won the Koreit Jewish Book Award for Philosophy and Thought in 2005. Rabbi Greenberg is the founding director of Eshel and lives with his husband and daughter in Brookline, Massachusetts. Okay, Steve, I have a question for you. This is a real simple one. Where do you think the Orthodox rabbinic establishment is headed in regard to same-sex marriage? And do you think this film will change minds and hearts in that regard?
Thank you for that question, and thank you, Rabbi Vardi, for this really marvelous film. You know, in some ways, I spent 2 years in Israel between 96 and 98, and Rabbi, you might remember that there was this young man named Sandy Dabowski, and he kept knocking on people's doors, and finally he made a movie called Trembling Before God. I refused to be in it for 4 years, and then finally he just wore me out. And that film was the beginning of the history that it's like, you know, in a way you don't exist until you can actually see yourself in the mirror. And you know you exist. You know, there are no references. On some level, going up gay means, especially, you know, in more closed societies means that you don't understand yourself, and therefore you kind of think of yourself as either the only one or as a mythical creature that doesn't really exist, and it can't be true. And I think that all of us, we're, growing up in an Orthodox community means growing up really being tied to parents and community and siblings and Shabbos meals and building sukkahs. And it's all this interpersonal communal frame that all aims toward marriage and children in order to continue it. And inside, this secret that somehow this is really, you are not responding the way the expectation is. And so you invent it, you lie about it, as we heard in your introduction, Ambassador Rubin, you end up play acting yourself rather than being yourself. And therefore you begin to doubt that anybody who really loves you loves you. They love some image of you. And so the pain is so great. It's not surprising that people feel locked out of any other option than the one that they've fantasized about and everyone else around them has. And they don't know how to resist it. They don't know how to say no to it. It's a more common feature of Israeli social reality. I think that Israel is a natalist society. Like, children are really a very high priority in Israeli society. It's a much lower priority here in the US. And so I think it's easier for people to say, I'm out. And I would say, probably some significant portion, 2/3 perhaps, of all kids who grow up in modern Orthodox environments, who feel that they have a unique independent identity, choose to walk away. In the Haredi community, it's much more common for what happens in this film to happen. And modern Orthodox rabbis are getting it in as much as they recognize something new, the existence of an LGBTQ person as not as a moral problem, but as you keep repeated it many times, Rabbi Vardi, as an identity, meaning as a selfhood. This is not something I can I can therapy myself out of, or I can morally improve upon. This is as central to me as any piece of my soul. So people end up being in horrible denial much of their lives. I remember myself not able to come out to myself till I was 35 years old, because the words, I am gay, meant that I would have no future. All the futures I'd planned were straight. All the futures anybody else planned for me were straight. So there would be nothing, I'd be standing at the edge of a cliff. And I think that more and more, Eshel's interviewed about 207 or 8 modern Orthodox rabbis of all different sorts of Orthodox, I should say, not only modern Orthodox. And the desire for compassion is very high. What fails is anything else. People say, my heart goes out to you, and you should be celibate for the rest of your life. They're increasingly not saying you should get married in the US, because they realize that will put their own daughters at risk, their own sons at risk. They don't want to do that. And they generally don't think it works most of the time. And in fact, much of the time it leads to tragedy. So they're not usually saying that anymore, at least in the modern Orthodox community. But what they are not saying is what I think we heard, was it from Rav Vilk or of Sherlow perhaps, is that they know how to say no, what you can't do, but they have no plan for what you can do. So this film is an invitation to rabbis to be able to speak to a 15-year-old and give him or her hope for an adult life, for a life arc that has hope and relationship. And that is what the film is about. The film is about encouraging rabbis to give us good guidance that will not be self-destructive of ourselves or of others. And that has yet to happen.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So I'm going to invite people to put their questions in the chat, but I'll start with you, Rabbi Vardi. Can you tell us a little bit about including the voice of the ex-spouse in your film? It's, we work a lot with people who are leaving their marriages because they are coming out. We don't hear from the other side that often. And when we do, it's incredibly pained And people beg us to highlight that experience because it's very important. Can you tell us about that? Because you have included the ex-spouse's voice in your film.
Well, really, for me in the film, this was the great discovery for me, that I discovered how painful it is for the wives. I couldn't imagine how hard it is. And when I heard the stories, I knew that this is something so that I have to bring out this voice. Really, and when I found out during making the film that my two daughters went dating with the yeshiva bochers, you know, bachurei yeshiva gays, one of them, the boy, just after having a deeper relationship, he said that he is attracted to a man, but he want to make a family, and he doesn't want to be a gay, you know, like in Tel Aviv, and he want. And my daughter said I couldn't leave him because I was pity for him. I couldn't just leave him on the side of the way, and she didn't think that this was hard enough to leave him because of this, because well, she felt pity for him, and really she liked him, and they have great relationship. You know, the gay boys, they're very sensitive and very you know, imagination and creative, and really it's she had a good time with him, but he was the one who didn't go forward for marriage. And these days he's out of the closet and even left practicing Judaism, Jewish halacha. And also my other daughter, I have two daughters, they both, what's a statistic is this, they both what relations with the gay religious bachurei yeshiva. So really, this is this, you know, I have in the film this scene that I brought together some ex-wives and asked them to tell this to the rabbaniyot, who is teaching girls to put in a red light and a red flag that to warn the young. This was so hard to film. I was standing after the camera and I was shaking, you know. It was a very long discussion that in the film I put in only few moments of it, but really it was very, very hard, and many of these ex-wives didn't get married again because of the trauma. So we cannot ignore this situation, and after making the film was a black hat called me. He didn't want to identify, and we had the long talking in the phone, and one time he said, you know, in our community we never spoke about what the women feels. We only deal with how to solve the problem of the man. But the first time after we made this long talking, he thought about his ex-wife who died from cancer and never knew why she suffered all her marriage time. So yes, this is something I felt I have to put on the table, and I think now when a girl will meet a gay boy in Israel, if she is religious, she will find this film to understand what's maybe waiting for her.
Beautiful, thank you. So this is a comment, not really a question, but I'll read it out from the chat. I think the film should be shown in schools, religious and secular in Israel, especially they had quite recently an education minister who advocated for conversion therapy. So is it being showed in schools in
I
Israel?
can tell you that I'm here, right? I came from Efrat. It the where Rabbi Riskin is the rabbi there, and they asked me to meet young people, young boys and girls in high school. They saw this film, and they thought that it's right for them to talk with me. Now they were really interested, and they had questions, and really asking. One of them asked, so how this situation goes together with Judaism? How can he stay believing in the Jewish religion? And we had a very interesting talk, and they were not shocked, and it was not too hard for them. So I think maybe it's right that boys and girls in high school, they can cope with this film.
Mhm. Yeah, good. So somebody is also asking in the chat, I am curious about the religious journeys of both the gay men and women and their spouses. It seemed like the majority of both became fully secular, but there was at least one who stayed very religious. Why and how did you end up where you are religiously? Do you foresee that changing if, as Rabbi Greenberg and Susie mentioned, Orthodox Judaism becomes more accepting? I'm not sure if this is directed to Nadav or Shoni, but would anyone like to respond to that? If the Orthodox community was more accepting, would you have stayed closer to your Orthodox lives?
I can respond. I mean, I'm not the one that came out, so I don't know if this is maybe not what the person who posted the question wants to hear, but I will say that I grew up Orthodox. Absolutely. I went to Beis Yaakov. My family is all Telz Yeshiva, they all still are. And I will say that I did leave Orthodoxy when I got divorced, primarily because I felt like I was not being accepted and my children were not being accepted because we supported my husband, ex-husband now, and we supported other people like him. And, I don't know, I don't want to turn this into like a bashing session or anything like that, but it's sad. It's sad how, my ex-husband is a wealthy man, and he was a huge supporter of the yeshivas and the day schools and the kollels and the Jewish organizations. Huge. He was a huge supporter. And when he came out, some of those organizations learned of his orientation, and I'm embarrassed actually to say that some actually still wanted his money, but they did not want his name associated with it. So they wanted him to sponsor their dinners or their events. And he is a businessman, and he would want to put his name and his business out there to advertise, to kind of get back for his support. And he was told, we'll take your money, but you cannot put your name anywhere near anything. And to me, that was just the biggest slap in the face. It's so hypocritical, the whole, ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. And my whole life I was raised to set this example that the Jewish people are something that everybody should want to be. And and we should want to show everyone why we're special. And that was such a huge wake-up call to me that, maybe we preach that, but that's not really what we practice. It's not really how we feel. And it pushed me very far away from the Orthodox community. I don't feel comfortable there. And I'm not even the one that came out. I'm not the one who struggles with my identity. I'm not I'm your average Jane. And so I do think that the religious world needs to wake up.
Thank you, Shoni. Nadav, do you want to respond?
Yes. Can you hear me well?
Yeah,
Can you hear
that's
me better.
Very good.
Awesome. I always say that I stay religious despite the religious community, not because of it. Or maybe it's part of it is the struggle. I think it's more exciting to change the community from within and not from outside. And I think that's a big part. And ironically, in the living room right next to me, there's a picture hanging on the wall with the pasuk, the explicit pasuk of Et zachar lo tishkav mishkavei isha. It's there on the wall in my living room because it's like every Jewish home has psukim on the wall. So why not have my special pasuk that God dedicated for me, in a way, in my living room? And you can't like read it right away. You have to like look at it and then understand. And I think, and it relates a bit to the question before about our exes. And Shani, you're amazing. Let's talk afterwards. I have a support group. When I came out and I decided to come out, I had my peers, I had my friends, I had my family that was supporting me. My family, my ex doesn't have that. She's in the closet. My family, they had to come out of the closet, and I have my bubble of religious gays and gays that like when we want to have a Simchat Torah, so we have it in my house, a Simchat Torah, and we dance with the Torah because we're together. My extended family doesn't have that, and they're more vulnerable because when my sister goes to her parents-in-laws, she hears their homophobic comments and she has to defend me, and she's like, what do I have to do with it? Why am I to be blamed? And this whole and that is not fair. What I'm trying to say. In a way, I feel blessed to be gay because I have my peers. I have the privilege of coming out and being who I am, and people from my surrounding don't have that privilege. And they need the support of that rabbi in the community to say, it's okay, don't worry if you're gay, because it's not just about me. It's not about being gay, lesbian, bi, trans, non-binary, whatever. It's about the other people who are silent. And I think I said it once to a group of rabbis. I said, you have people in your community that are LGBT and family. If nobody came to you to talk about it, it means that you're doing something wrong. And they were shocked and they realized that I'm right. Like usually, I'm gay. That's our privilege. So that's what I have to say about that.
Thank you, Nadav. Rabbi Vardi, do you see rabbis' attitudes changing in Israel? Do you think they're trying to be a bit more open and accommodating to LGBTQ people? If you have any examples, please share them.
I think we have changing all the time because we meet our students. And when we meet personally, someone who is close to us, and things are being opened generally, so we can identify with them and we have to search for solutions. Well, I can tell you about a secret group of rabbis and LGBT that are meeting, and starting to understand and starting to negotiate and talk in the halachic language, to put it in the Jewish in the Jewish language, how we can bring our feelings, we want to identify with them, we want to accept them, and we have to find the Jewish language to do it. So I think we're progressing with it.
Thank you so much. There's a question also for you, Rabbi Vardi. Why didn't the film include accounts of any ex-husbands of lesbian women?
Oh, that's a great question. Really, I thought when I made the film, this is what I got, that the ex-husband doesn't have so much problem. So because all of them got married very fast. They find their other women. And when the film came out, I got in the Facebook a very angry guy who said, "Why didn't you bring my voice? I was married to a lesbian, and I had to take a psychological therapy to get to overcome about my trauma with this woman until I could heal myself and get married." So this was a mistake, that I didn't try to find them, because really I thought that the real victim is the women, but no, also the men, they are suffering from this kind of unhappy marriage.
Hey, thank you. We are going to end in a few minutes. Do any of the panelists have any last words they want to share? No. Okay, Steve, I think you are muted if you are trying to share a last word.
Sure. I wanted to put out that that there have been changes, significant ones over the past 5 years. There are many synagogues, Orthodox synagogues, that are now seeking a way to shift their membership status so that they can include households rather than families, and so that they feel more comfortable including all different kinds of like, say, less traditional families. There are, it took me 10 years to do the first same-sex commitment ceremony. I had refused it for 10 years because I just wasn't ready to tackle the backlash. And finally I did it about 10 years ago. Because if you can't give, it's basically Harvey Milk. You got to give them hope. People need hope that they can find love and get on with lives. So I decided I couldn't not do it anymore. And now, because young rabbis are being challenged to really address this question, and imagine that there's not just one kind of way of being human, but human sexuality is just more variable, that they want to try to figure out how to way, maybe not to do kiddushin, which is highly focused on the gender binary, but instead do some kind of commitment ceremony that is similar. And now there are 10 Orthodox rabbis with Orthodox smicha in the US and Israel who are willing to do such commitment ceremonies. And I don't think that's going to slow down. I think that increasingly as people get married, and I say Orthodox families are attending marriages. They ask their rabbi. Sometimes they get a yes, sometimes they get a no. But more and more families are saying, I'm going to stay with my kid and be there and go to his commitment ceremony. Recently, didn't Rabbi Vardi, you told me a story of somebody who, you don't have to mention the name, but who went to a wedding, right?
I don't remember what.
There's a story I heard recently that a very significant rabbi in Israel was asked to go to his son's or his nephew's wedding. And because he went, he lost his position.
Oh yes, in Shas, in the Yes, he
Mhm.
had to quit
Yes, at the parliament.
Knesset. Yes.
Right. So my point being is that increasingly people are realizing that there's this there's a fundamental values consideration that is human and Jewish that is going to mitigate the fear and open up a sense of possibility. And I'm very, hopeful that in the next 5 to 10 years, things will actually even get better.
Great, wonderful. And Rabbi Greenberg mentioned our Welcoming Shoals project, where we've interviewed over 200 rabbis across North America. So check that out on our website. I want to highlight 2 people who helped bring this event to light. Amir Tadmor, who is in the culture desk at the consulate. Amir, thank you so much. And
Thank you.
it's been wonderful to work with you. And I am finding Ambassador Rubin. There we go. Thank you all so much for participating. I want to thank all the speakers for sharing so personally and from their hearts. Rabbi Vardi, Nadav Schwartz, Shoni Braun, Rabbi Steve Greenberg, and Susie Fuld. Thank you, Rabbi Vardi, for making this incredible film. If you'd like to bring this documentary film and a similar panel discussion to your community, please be in touch with Rabbi Greenberg at steve@eshelonline.org. And special thanks again to Amir Tadmor and Ambassador Rubin, and to the Consulate General of Israel to New England for hosting and sponsoring this panel. And thank you all for coming. And you can still see the film, I believe, correct?
Tomorrow, the film, usually it's geo-blocked. This film is, in Boston, this was only available to Massachusetts residents, and that's the case in many of our screenings. But tomorrow, the film is available all over the US to anyone who wants to see it. And there's a panel tomorrow connected with the Washington, DC Jewish Film Festival. So please go on our website or go on the DC Film Festival and encourage all your friends and family members to watch the film tonight and join the panel tomorrow, if they haven't yet seen it.
Wonderful. Thank you all so much.
Thank
you
you
can
very
hang out
much.
and be well, everybody. Stay safe, stay healthy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. How do I remove this? Okay. Stop recording. There we go. Recordings.